Hi, I'm Annie Fitzsimmons. I'm your Washington Realtors Legal Hotline lawyer. And today we're going to start a series on the Fair Housing Act. In Washington, you are under the authority of two different Fair Housing Acts. There's the Federal Fair Housing Act and the Washington State Fair Housing Act. Under both laws, the general principle is that it is unlawful for any person to be discriminated against in the purchase or leasing of real property based on their membership in a protected class. Federal law protects the classes that you see on the board behind me: race, color, national origin, religion, disability, sex, and familial status. And Washington law protects all of those same classes plus additional classes: the classes of creed, marital status, sexual orientation, gender identity, HIV/AIDS and hepatitis C status, and veterans military status. In addition, within Washington State, there are local jurisdiction ordinances in Seattle, King County, Bellevue, and Tacoma with a few additional protected classes. But by and large, if you make it a policy not to discriminate against any of the classes protected by the federal or state law, you're going to be safe in most parts of Washington State. Within this series, we're going to be discussing a variety of topics all related to the Fair Housing Act. But one thing is absolutely essential, and that's the topic of this class today. The Fair Housing Law protects buyers and protects tenants in real property transactions within every single component of a real estate office. Every person within the firm who comes in contact with a buyer or a tenant, a potential buyer or a potential tenant, is subject to the Fair Housing Act. So, designated brokers, office managers, trainers, it's important for you to make sure that not only all of the brokers and salespersons within your office understand the Fair Housing Act and how to comply with the Fair Housing Act, but every single employee, independent contractor, or other person affiliated with your firm, including the receptionist, every broker, every assistant, whether licensed or unlicensed, every person within your firm who comes in contact with the public. And here is the overarching theme. Any offer, any information, any treatment that's given to one buyer or one tenant or a potential buyer or potential tenant should be given similarly to every single potential buyer and potential tenant who comes in contact with your firm. Similarly situated buyers, similarly situated tenants should be treated identically, as though the provider of the service, whatever their capacity in your firm may be, is wearing a blindfold. A blindfold as to the appearance of the buyer, the potential buyer, or the potential tenant. With that treatment, you should be safe. Okay, let's think about that a little bit. When a potential buyer walks into the office, the receptionist who greets that buyer and asks them to have a seat, make themselves comfortable, offers a cup of coffee, should give that same presentation and make that same offer of a cup of coffee to every single potential buyer, every single potential tenant who walks in the door. The broker in your office who is informed that a buyer wants to purchase a 3-bedroom, 2-bathroom house in the $250,000 price range should show the same houses to that buyer that that broker would show to any other buyer with the same parameters. There should be no selection of which properties or which neighborhoods to show to a particular buyer based on any physical or other characteristic of the buyer themselves, except for the description of the property that the buyer gives to the broker. Assistants. When assistants are asked to provide information, make contact, make phone calls, deliver information, whatever it may be, whatever the assignment that's given to the assistant, that assignment should be carried out by the assistant without regard to any characteristic of the buyer whatsoever. With that principle in mind, you're probably not going to have a single problem under the Fair Housing Act. We will talk more in future videos about specific brokerage services and how they need to be delivered in compliance with the Fair Housing Act, but with this general broad principle in mind, that the exact same treatment and this exact same service and information is given to every similarly situated potential buyer and potential tenant, you'll be fine. Remember, it's important for every member of your firm to be trained in the Fair Housing Act, because every single member of your firm is subject to compliance with the Fair Housing Act. I look forward to seeing you here for the rest of this series. In the meantime, I hope you have one great day after another. Thank you so much for being a Washington Realtors member. If you have questions on the Fair Housing Act, even before we finish the series, or on any other topic, be sure to send me an email, legalhotline@warealtor.org.